fight with Bruce Lee. I'm gonna tell you, my opinion, Bruce Lee was the greatest martial artist that ever lived.
In the pantheon of martial arts legends, few figures cast as long a shadow as Bruce Lee. Born in 1940 in San Francisco and raised in Hong Kong, Lee rose from humble beginnings to become a global symbol of physical prowess, philosophical depth, and cinematic charisma. His films, such as Enter the Dragon and The Way of the Dragon, not only revolutionized action cinema, but also introduced millions to the principles of Jeet Kune, his innovative hybrid fighting system that emphasized adaptability, efficiency, and directness over rigid traditional styles. Yet, beneath the glamour of Hollywood and the mythos that has grown around him since his untimely death in 1973 at the age of 32, questions have lingered about the authenticity of his combat skills. Was Bruce Lee truly the unparalleled fighter his reputation suggests, or was his image amplified by the silver screen? This debate has persisted for decades, fueled by skeptics who point to his lack of formal competitive records and proponents who cite his rigorous training and influence on modern mixed martial arts. Enter Jim Kelly, a figure whose credibility in the martial arts world is unimpeachable. Kelly, an African-American karate champion born in 1946, achieved fame not just as an actor, but as a genuine competitor. He won the International Middleweight Karate Championship in 1971 and was known for his technical precision, powerful strikes, and disciplined approach to training. His role as Williams in Enter the Dragon alongside Lee in 1973 thrust him into the spotlight, but it was his real-life experiences with Lee that provided a unique window into the man's abilities. Before his own passing in 2013 from cancer, Kelly shared insights that cut through the haze of speculation. His statements, drawn from interviews and reflections, painted a picture of Lee not as a performative actor, but as a master technician whose skills were tested and proven in private sessions away from the public eye. This reformulated exploration delves into Kelly's revelations, rephrasing and expanding upon his accounts to offer a comprehensive view of Bruce Lee's real fighting prowess. By examining Kelly's first-hand observations, we challenge long-standing myths, explore the philosophical underpinnings of Lee's approach, and contextualize his legacy within the broader evolution of martial arts. What emerges is a portrait of a man whose dominance was rooted in science, discipline, and an unyielding pursuit of perfection. Through this lens, we honor both Kelly's testimony and Lee's enduring impact, reminding us that true mastery often lies in the unseen moments of dedication and innovation. As we journey through these insights, we'll uncover why Kelly believed no one in Lee's era could match him and how his words continue to resonate in today's combat sports landscape. The shocking claim that redefined Bruce Lee's legacy. In the years leading up to his death, Jim Kelly dropped a bombshell that reverberated through the martial arts community, even among those who had idolized Bruce Lee for decades. He asserted that he had personally observed evidence of Lee's authentic combat capabilities, proof that went beyond the choreographed scenes of movies or the stage demonstrations for audiences. This wasn't about theatrical flair or rehearsed routines. It was raw, unfiltered power that could dismantle any doubt harbored by detractors who dismissed Lee as merely a talented performer rather than a genuine warrior. Kelly's respect for Lee was profound and unwavering. He publicly stated that, in his view, no fighter during Lee's lifetime, spanning the 1960s and early 1970s, could have bested him in a real confrontation. This era was rich with formidable martial artists, from karate experts like Maso Yama to judo masters and emerging kickboxers. Yet Kelly placed Lee at the apex. His claim wasn't born from blind fandom, but from direct exposure during their time together on the set of Enter the Dragon and in private training sessions. For years, whispers and anecdotes had circulated about what Lee could accomplish in an actual fight, away from the lights and cameras. Skeptics argue that his small stature, standing at 5'7" and weighing around 135 pounds, limited his effectiveness against larger opponents. Others questioned whether his speed, often highlighted in films, translated to practical dominance. But Kelly's testimony shifted the narrative dramatically. He portrayed Lee's abilities as transcending physical attributes like size or raw strength. Instead, it was a blend of intellectual acuity, biomechanical mastery, and psychological insight that made Lee seem almost otherworldly. What exactly did Kelly see that convinced him of this? And why did he choose to remain relatively quiet for so long, only sharing these details toward the end of his life? The answers lie in the intimate details of their interactions, which Kelly described with the precision of a seasoned analyst rather than an enthusiastic admirer. As we unpack his words, it becomes clear that his revelations force a reevaluation of Lee's place in history, not as a myth, but as a verifiable pioneer whose influence shaped everything from UFC fighters to contemporary self-defense systems. The unanswered question: was Bruce Lee truly untouchable? At the heart of Kelly's statements was an unresolved enigma that has puzzled martial arts enthusiasts and historians alike. How could Bruce Lee's fighting prowess be so extraordinary that it defied standard evaluation? Kelly insisted that Lee's skills went beyond conventional metrics like knockout records or tournament wins. He described a fighter whose speed was matched only by his precision and whose control over every aspect of combat placed him in a category all his own. This wasn't hyperbole or the product of hero worship. Kelly spoke as a battle-tested veteran who had faced off against top-tier competitors in karate tournaments and full-contact bouts. With a background in Shotokan karate and a reputation for his own powerful strikes, Kelly's endorsements carried significant weight. He had trained and sparred with champions across disciplines, yet he maintained that Lee operated on a different plane. "My opinion is that Bruce Lee was the greatest martial artist that ever lived," Kelly once said, emphasizing that this view stemmed from personal experience rather than admiration. He had battled and mentored numerous elite fighters, but Lee stood out as one step above everybody. What set him apart? Kelly pointed to Lee's ability to execute techniques for real, not in a simulated environment, but in the authenticity that comes from constant testing and refinement. Kelly elaborated on Lee's timing and accuracy, noting that his movements weren't just rapid, they were impeccably efficient. Lee didn't rely solely on reflexes. He anticipated opponents' actions, reading subtle cues like shifts in weight or changes in breathing. This predictive edge allowed him to create opportunities before his adversary even realized a vulnerability existed. Every punch, kick, or evasion was deliberate, designed to maximize impact while minimizing effort. Lee's adaptability was another key factor. He could seamlessly transition between stances, styles, and strategies in the blink of an eye, adjusting to whatever the situation demanded. Moreover, Kelly highlighted how Lee's technical prowess was intertwined with his physical conditioning. Lee's regimen included advanced exercises like plyometrics for explosive power, isometrics for strength endurance, and speed drills that honed his reaction times to superhuman levels. Despite his lightweight frame, Lee generated force comparable to much heavier fighters through flawless biomechanics, aligning his body to channel momentum and energy with pinpoint accuracy. Kelly described this as decades ahead of its time, presaging modern training methods used in sports science today, such as those employed by athletes in MMA or boxing. In Kelly's eyes, this wasn't mere praise. It was a clinical assessment. He had seen countless fighters, but none matched Lee's economy of motion, where every action served a purpose without waste. Lee's control of distance, the space between himself and an opponent, was masterful, allowing him to dictate the flow of engagement. His psychological composure added another layer. Lee remained calm and focused, turning combat into a chess match rather than a brawl. For those who question whether Lee's legend was inflated by Hollywood, Kelly's account suggested otherwise. It was built on tangible superiority that only those who faced him could truly appreciate. To grasp the full weight of Kelly's judgment, one must understand the man himself. Kelly wasn't a casual observer. He was a pioneer in his own right, breaking barriers as one of the first prominent black martial artists in America during a time of racial tension. His insights into Lee weren't colored by bias, but informed by years of rigorous practice and competition. The credible witness. Jim Kelly's martial arts journey. Jim Kelly's authority on Bruce Lee stems from his own storied career in martial arts, which predated his acting fame and provided a solid foundation for his evaluations. Long before stepping onto movie sets, Kelly established himself as a formidable competitor. He began training in karate in the 1960s, quickly rising through the ranks with his blend of speed, power, and strategic thinking. By 1971, he had captured the International Middleweight Karate Championship, a title that required not just physical talent, but mental fortitude in high-stakes tournaments. Kelly's style emphasized control over range, efficient power generation, and psychological readiness, principles that mirrored those he later admired in Lee. As one of the most visible African-American figures in martial arts during the early 1970s, Kelly faced challenges in a predominantly white and Asian-dominated field, yet he earned respect through consistent performance. His experience in point sparring competitions and later full-contact fights gave him a keen eye for distinguishing between theoretical knowledge and practical application. When Kelly joined the cast of Enter the Dragon in 1972, he anticipated working with a talented actor and philosopher. What he encountered instead was a peer whose mastery reshaped his understanding of combat. "When I first met Bruce, it was like meeting a force of nature," Kelly recalled. "He had this energy, this intensity. You could feel it the moment he walked into the room." Their daily training sessions on set evolved into profound exchanges, where Lee treated every drill as an opportunity for experimentation rather than routine practice. Kelly described Lee as a perfectionist who dissected techniques under pressure, refining mechanics until they achieved absolute efficiency. These weren't scripted movie fights, but genuine explorations of timing, reaction, and mental control. Lee could alter his rhythm in mid-motion, transforming a feint into a trap or a partial strike into a decisive counter. Kelly termed this scientific fighting, a methodical approach driven by observation and feedback, not blind repetition. Importantly, Kelly rejected the notion that Lee's avoidance of formal tournaments invalidated his claims. Bruce didn't need tournaments, he explained. He tested himself every day. For Lee, combat was an evolving science, unbound by stylistic constraints. Kelly's testimony served as professional validation, recognizing in Lee the hallmarks of elite fighters: adaptability, precision, and composure. But what specific moments in those private sessions left such an indelible mark on Kelly? Beyond the rehearsal, what Kelly saw in private sparring. Kelly made a crucial distinction in his descriptions of Bruce Lee. The man wasn't performing for an audience, he was conducting experiments in combat effectiveness. The sparring sessions Kelly witnessed were structured to simulate real conditions as closely as possible, with controlled intensity that allowed for learning without unnecessary risk. Lee approached these encounters like a researcher, using them to test theories on movement, force, and psychology. One standout aspect was Lee's ability to read opponents through minute indicators, changes in posture, breathing rhythms, or muscle tension. This wasn't mere reaction, it was anticipation based on probabilistic assessment. Kelly noted that Lee seemed to operate half a second ahead, intercepting attacks before they fully materialized. In practice, Lee's kicks served as tools for distance management, pushing adversaries back or drawing them in at will. Once within striking range, his hand techniques flowed like a seamless chain, blending punches, traps, and grapples into one fluid sequence. Kelly emphasized Lee's versatility. Restrict him to punches, and he still dominated. Limit him to kicks, and he adapted effortlessly. This integration of limbs, each operating independently yet in harmony, reflected a complete mastery of body mechanics. Equally impressive was Lee's restraint. He could deliver strikes at full speed, but halt them millimeters from impact, showcasing an unparalleled command of force and timing. The intent was not to overpower, but to outthink, Kelly observed. Aggression gave way to precision, spectacle to structure. Lee's composure under pressure further amplified his edge. Even when challenged, he remained analytical, treating sparring as data gathering. Patterns were identified, responses cataloged, and strategies refined on the fly. For Kelly, this elevated Lee from a skilled practitioner to a true innovator. His synthesis of philosophy, drawing from Taoism and Western thought, biomechanics, informed by studies in kinesiology, and psychology, understanding fear and intent, created a holistic system. Jeet Kune wasn't a fixed style, but a framework for personal evolution, and Kelly saw this in action. Records of these sessions are scarce, as they were never intended for public consumption. Yet consistent accounts from those involved, including Kelly, affirm that Lee's skills were real and unmatched. These private validations formed the core of his legacy as a fighter, not the public persona. The hidden sessions, training away from the spotlight. Away from the cameras and crowds, Bruce Lee engaged in rigorous sparring with select elite martial artists, as Kelly often recounted. These weren't publicity stunts, but confidential assessments of skill under realistic parameters. "We trained hard," Kelly said. "Bruce would break down every movement, every angle. He was obsessed with efficiency." The privacy was deliberate, rooted in mutual respect among professionals who valued substance over sensationalism. Lee trained with respected figures whose identities Kelly protected, emphasizing that the focus was on what these sessions revealed rather than who participated. Consistency was key. Lee's speed, timing, and control shone through repeatedly, leaving no room for doubt. Critics who lamented the lack of footage misunderstood the purpose. Filming would have turned genuine exploration into entertainment. They knew there was nothing to prove to anyone else, Kelly explained. The evidence was self-evident to those present. This approach countered arguments that Lee's non-participation in tournaments invalidated his claims. Kelly flipped the script. Lee's Jeet Kune Do was built for unscripted reality, not rule-bound sports. Tournaments enforced limitations, no eye gouges, no joint locks in certain styles, that Lee's system exploited for efficiency. His methods prioritized quick resolution over endurance, targeting vital areas for decisive ends. Kelly pointed to Lee's students like Joe Louis, a kickboxing champion, and Chuck Norris, a karate legend, who thrived in competitions using Lee's principles. This indirect success validated his teachings. Had Lee competed, Kelly believed he would have excelled, but his focus was broader, engineering the body for any scenario. Rules were adaptable variables, not barriers. This reframed Lee's absence as intentional focus, making his dominance systemic rather than situational. Mastering control, dominance without destruction. A recurring theme in Kelly's accounts was Bruce Lee's ability to assert dominance while ensuring safety. Bruce is the type of guy that could spar with you, kicking and punching no matter how big you are, and not hurt you. This controlled power stemmed from precise anticipation, intercepting moves with counters that felt simultaneous. Lee's distance management was flawless, dictating pace and forcing reactive responses from opponents. Efficiency defined his style, minimal energy for maximum effect. Kelly described sparring with Lee as humbling yet educational, a blend of challenge and insight. Lee's coordination unified his body into a cohesive unit, with strikes flowing from a stable core. Disruptions in rhythm were met with instant adaptation, maintaining control. This restraint wasn't weakness, but supreme discipline. Lee could unleash overwhelming force, but chose precision, elevating combat to an art of intent. Sessions felt like studies, with Lee analyzing movements in real time. This combination of composure, flexibility, and intellect made him unique, turning practice into progressive research.
The intellectual edge, Bruce Lee's fighter's mind. Kelly attributed Lee's supremacy to his mental acuity. Training was analytical, deconstructing techniques into mechanical and psychological elements. Training with Bruce was like going back to school, Kelly recalled. He made you question everything. Lee sought comprehension over rote learning, drilling concepts until they became instinctive. This reduced the perception-response gap to near zero, creating predictive responsiveness. Lee detected intent via cues like alignment or breath, executing logically rather than emotionally. His calm demeanor exuded certainty, pressuring opponents psychologically. Kelly saw this mind-body unity as Lee's hallmark, speed and power quantifiable, but awareness immeasurable. The discretion of those who sparred with Lee spoke volumes. It wasn't secrecy, but recognition of inexplicable mastery. Their silence affirmed Lee's peak performance, beyond words.